Our wives are the people that we as husbands love more than anyone else in the world. Yet some days a glance, a statement, or even a small action can make us so reactive and spin in an argument. And hurting them makes us feel shame, sometimes leading to long arguments and sleepless nights. Hello, my friend. If you're new here, my name's Zach, and on this channel we help Christian husbands live uncommon lives. And reactivity is a big problem for us guys, and specifically with our bride. Have you ever had that moment where you come home from work, you had a great day, you think you're fine, and she asks you a question, and all of a sudden you get angry and blow your top? I have. And for a long time, I didn't understand what was going on there. And I'd sometimes blame myself and get all mad at myself and shame myself. Or if I'm honest, other times I would blame her, that if she would have reacted different or it was her fault. But really, I didn't fully understand what was going on internally and have a good plan. And so the rest of this video, we're going to talk about what's going on in you, why do you get reactive, and we're going to make a plan so that you're less reactive with her, so that you can love her well. Let's dive in. Here's what's going on. When you get reactive, you're getting triggered, and this thing called anxiety is taking over. And that's what's going on. When anxiety hits, you stop thinking and start reacting. And you can react in multiple ways. You could be like me, where my reactivity is to fight. I'm going to fight someone, and then when I don't even realize that I'm arguing. Or you might be a runner. You might go into flight. Or maybe you freeze. And you just kind of ignore, go internally, and just freeze. That's anxiety that has come into play, and that's when it's really ramped up. And how we can fight back against this reactivity is we can catch it earlier. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to notice that we're getting anxious. So now that you know that your reactivity culprit is called anxiety, you're going to notice when you get anxious. Not when you yell, but before. And here's the 3 signs that can tell you that you're starting to spin. You might get a tight body. This would show up like you're clenching your jaw, or maybe even you're getting a stomach ache. I know a lot of people that are like, man, my stomach's always hurting. Well, it's because they're tightening with this anxiousness. Or you might get tense in the top of your shoulders. For you, just think about it. At these points in time where you get like that, check in with your body. Is it getting tight? The other thing that could be happening is your pulse could be raising. I have a handy dandy watch that tells me how many beats my heart is beating. And so when it starts going high, guess what? This dude's anxious. And so you can look at that. Is your pulse increasing? That's another sign. And here's the last one. It's spinning mind. This is when you just start whirling around in your mind. Have you ever had a problem in your life and you like, I'm going to think harder to figure this out? That's spinning mind of anxiety. What happens when we are unaware and we're not noticing that is we usually don't pick up on it until we're yelling or running or shutting down. Or all 3 things are going on and we're in this anxious spin. And when we get into that point, it's the hardest to control. So if you can name it early, you can get on top of the anxiety. And here's a little tip for you. All points are not created equal when it comes to home. See, if you're trying to be less reactive with your wife, here's the thing. When you leave work, check in with yourself and notice, like, am I anxious? Because if you have a high pulse or a tight body or spinning mind because work was hard, you want to reduce the anxiousness before you come in that door. And so we're going to do the next thing in the process. So you've noticed you're anxious. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to name, what is it that you're anxious about? The more concretely you can name what it is you're worried about, the more it will dissipate. See, diffusing anxiety, a lot of times all we need to do is notice and name what it is we're all worked up about. The more concretely we name exactly what we're worked up about, the more it will dissipate. Now, here's an example from my own life. Monday of this week, today we're recording, it's a Wednesday, but on Monday I was getting worked up. I felt my tight jaw. I was all worked up, and I was really trying to figure it out, and I named, what I was worked up about. What I was worked up about is, I've talked about in other videos, is I have a business opportunity where there's another location for sale. I'm also doing this video on YouTube and think, where is this going to lead? And I am trying to decide between those two things, what gets priority, because I only have so much time. And so I started to get worked up about it. I named, well, that's what I'm struggling with. And guess what? I was still anxious. You know why? Because it wasn't as concretely as possible. Yes, that was there, but then I had to go underneath that surface. Like, underneath that, what was going on is I felt like, and still do, and so I'm working through this in the moment, like, God has this exact plan. And if I get it wrong, I'm going to screw everything up. And if I get it wrong and screw everything up, then my wife will not be happy with me. And then she will not love me. Because I have to make the right actions all the time for people to love me. That is not true. She's not going anywhere. No, just joking. I didn't ask her to confirm her commitment to me. She's committed to me. She loves me not because of what I do, but for who I am. That's what she tells me. So I know that, and I trust her. But still, my anxious brain, because of history, because of how I write into my interactions, I think that I'm only worth the value that I bring to the table. And so if I'm only worth the value that I bring to the table of what I can do for someone, then I must pick the right path to be the most valuable person. And this is what caused the spin. And when I was able to name that, it calmed my heart. But you might have something that happened at work. Maybe someone didn't like you. Maybe you didn't do something correctly. Maybe you feel out of control. Maybe you feel controlled. Whatever it is, like, the more you name it, it will help anxiety. And here's a pro tip as a married dude, one married dude to another. Like, when you figure these things out and you name them, instead of blowing up on your wife, maybe let her into that space. I know it can be vulnerable, but some of the most rich conversations I've had and connective conversations I've had with my wife is when I've invited her into those sacred spaces. And you need to be careful. You need to be aware that she's able to handle that she has the mental space. Like, if she's running around chasing toddlers and cooking a meal and you're like pouring your heart out and then you're shocked that she's not fully paying attention, that's not the right time. But when it is the right time, if you can let her into that space, it will grow and enrich your marriage so much. It's changed my marriage. Like, Monday, she was able to see I wasn't doing well, and I walked her through that that's what was going on and affirmed that I knew that she wasn't going to leave me. But my brain still goes there when I get anxious. Number 3, we need to diffuse these things. So sometimes you're going to be able to notice and name, and the anxiety is going to dissipate so much that you're not going to be reactive. But there's other points when it's a really heavy thing, when it's like a kingpin trauma thing, or you're just so spun up because you waited too long, right? You didn't notice, and it's okay, that'll happen. But at this point, it's not enough just to name. After you name, you need to diffuse in some way, shape, or form. And here's how we diffuse. You're going to make a list when you're not anxious, because that will make it really easy to follow it. Because when you're anxious, your brain does not work. But you're going to look, hey, what are people? Who are people that fill me up? And make a list of the people that fill you up. This is not the people you love. Like, I love my kids. There are times where they're getting older now. There's times where they do fill me up. But there's a lot of times they drain me. Like, my wife, though, she does fill me up. And so she's on that list. Congratulations, sweetheart. So who for you? Like, is there friends? A parent? Your spouse? Like, what people fill you up? Just write them down. And if someone doesn't fill you up, don't feel bad about it. Like, Just because they don't make the list doesn't mean you can't love them. You're looking for when you're anxious and stirred up. And then what are places? Places that energize you and fill you up. I live in the country. I love to be in nature. It fills me up. The city drains me. The city exhausts me. Nature fills me. For you, the cement jungle might fill you up. That's strange, but it could happen. The next thing after people and places, it's also activities. What activities fill you up? Here's some for me. Walking with my wife. See, that has both of them. It's an activity, walking, and it's with her. And that's a filling activity for me. Running, lifting weights, hunting, fishing, reading the Bible, praying, listening to worship music, reading a good book, doing a puzzle. These are all things that fill me up. Now, there's other things, activities that I really love. Like, if you know me, I am an Oregon Ducks fanatic. We just had a great football game against Ohio State this last weekend. I don't know when this will come out. I was excited. If you like Ohio State, you're not as excited. But those things, that game was incredible. But I left exhausted. It did not fill me. And so for you, really watch that. There might be activities you really like, but they don't fill you. All right, and the last tip on how to be less reactive with our wives is just, again, know those conflict points. Know where it's not all points are created equal. That greeting when you first see each other, a lot of times for me, that can be the make or break one, whether it's coming home from work or it's rushing out the door in the morning. Like these choke points where we come to and from the house, for whatever reason, those can be it. Or maybe for you, it's dinner. Just be aware. Is there a point where you tend to be more reactive than others? Once I'm settled in at home, I'm good. But that initial reaction, I'm a little more easily triggered. So just be aware of that. I hope that this video helps you to be less reactive with your wife and more of a calm presence so that you can have a peaceful home.